He's Big Shot Bob, Robert Horry, and Laker analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet. Also joining us on behalf of SureCo. We'll talk about that. He's the Chief Impact Officer for SureCo, whose mission is to transform healthcare for working Americans and helping underserved individuals and families battling insurance costs and premiums. Good to see you again, Bob. Every time I have you on, I always think, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Now it's 7 titles. And okay. And the reason why I bring it up, and now I really feel like this is an injustice. Michael Cooper's in because he was part of a collaboration with the Lakers. One team, but you won titles with the Lakers, the Rockets, and the Spurs, and your nickname is Big Shot Bob. I'm just trying to understand. Like, you were a semifinalist, I think, last year. Is that right?
Sure, I think so. I don't keep up, but because if I don't get in, I'd be too heartbroken. So I don't really keep up.
But somebody makes a case for you. Somebody presents your case to the committee.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, Rudy T was when he had his induction speech. He kind of gave me a shout out, and then it kind of rolled from there. So this is my second year being nominated. I didn't get in this year, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's disappointing when you don't get in, but on the other side of that, it's a lot of guys that don't even get a mention or a sniff of the Hall of Fame. So I'm happy, but not content.
Yeah, 7 titles and being a contributor. Yeah. That to me, nobody's had more titles and not made the Hall of Fame than you. So that's why, I don't know. It's a statistical anomaly, it feels like, that you've been part of 3 different franchises and even part of the Laker team. And I don't know if you felt like maybe you were overshadowed by some of these players you played with and maybe didn't get that acknowledgement.
Yeah, I do, because sometimes as a player, there are more players like myself that sacrifice their games for everybody else to be better. And I think about when I got to Houston, of course, Dream, MVP, Shaq, MVP, Tim Duncan. You kind of take a back seat to those guys. And for me, it was all about winning. And if I did it the right way, you were going to win. I felt like everything else was going to take care of itself. And I think about, my first couple of years in the league where I was a 100 guy, 100 steals, 100 blocks, and never made an all defensive team. And that was one of the things that really made me mad, because I'm like, and I'm like, well, I was kind of overshadowed by the guy who was a defensive player of the year, meaning Dream, blocking shots. But I had almost as many block shots as you, And for me, it hurts, but a lot of those guys in the Hall of Fame don't have what I have, and that's 7 championships.
Okay, I'm going to give you the first pick. You can have Hakeem Olajuwon. You can have Tim Duncan. You can have Shaq.
If you're giving me the 2000 Shaq, I'm taking Shaq. If I can pick out which guy I want, he was just so dominant the year he won MVP. Man, you think about it, averaging almost 30-20, and his personality is fantastic. Dream would be second, and Tim would be a close second, third. But you can't really pick when you have great guys like those 3 guys. I enjoyed playing with all 3 of them.
How would your Rockets have done against Jordan's Bulls?
We would have beat them. We would beat him. It's everybody wants it, and everybody's like, well, Jordan actually loses sometimes. All the greats lose sometimes. If we just go by our record against the Bulls when we were there, and we were pretty good. I think when it comes to matchups, and I think Vernon matching against MJ was a pretty good matchup. Myself against Scottie was a good matchup. But so now, who was going to match up with Dream? Nobody. So and playing for Phil and knowing Phil's mentality, I think we would have won that series. And I know a lot of people were like, man, you crazy. I'm like, because Jordan, people forget, Jordan came back in 95. He had a double nickel against the Knicks, but he got beat by the Orlando Magic. Why? Because his team wasn't good enough.
You ever discuss this with Jordan?
I've never had a chance to. I would love to. It'd be a good debate. But I know he's out winning NASCAR races, so he doesn't have time for basketball anymore.
Better defender, Jordan or Pippen?
Pippen, by far.
Really?
By far. And this is one thing people don't understand about Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen is the ultimate basketball player. For me, he's one of my top 5 of all time. Because when you think about a player who can guard every position on the floor, there's only like 3 of those that's ever existed. You think about, he can guard a point guard, he can guard a center, he can score. When Jordan left, he took them to the Eastern Conference Finals. And he gets so that's the one thing about when you play with greats, I mean like supersonic greats like Michael Jordan, everybody else says, oh, he only won because of Jordan. Maybe Jordan only won because of Pippen. And I think Pippen is so underrated and so unappreciated. And I think people need to really take a seat back and look at what he did throughout his career and really marvel at what he did. He was great.
How often do you play peacemaker between Kobe and Shaq?
I never had to play peacemaker. It was the weirdest thing. Kobe was always, intense. Shaq was always intense, and we always won. I think, winning solves all problems. We didn't lose much when I
But
was
see,
with the
I
Lakers.
wondered though, Shaq's goofy, and I didn't know if that bothered Kobe, who isn't goofy.
But here's the thing is you don't know Kobe like we knew Kobe. You get in practice, don't get me wrong, there are times in practice where everybody's intense. But then you have those moments where you shooting the bull and having fun. And we had film of us in the locker room, I mean Kobe, B. Shaw, Rick Fox, and all of us and Derek Fisher. You would be like, man, y'all are silly. How do y'all win? Because we used to have so much fun on the planes in the locker room outside of the camera. Because the thing about great teams, when you step on that court, you are focused. You getting the job done, and that's what we were able to do. We got the job done because we had a lot of vets and a lot of guys who were hungry for championships.
Talking to Robert Horry, the Lakers analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet. It feels like we keep waiting for a different alternative outcome for the Lakers, but it's the same, Robert. They're top heavy with talent, and they do not play defense well, right?
Yeah, but I think when you look at the Lakers, they have guys on the team that can play defense. But the problem is we're such a three-ball team that when you put them in the game, they're not three ballers. You're talking about, Vando, Marcus Smart is up and down. You have, Jackson Hayes. Those guys are really good defenders, but you don't want them on the court sometimes because you're thinking about threes. And I'm all about getting buckets. I tell people all the time, the NBA is not about threes. It's about getting buckets. Who can get a bucket when you need a bucket? And if you look at all the guys who've won championships, you look at Shea Gildress, MVP last year. His game is not predicated on threes. It's predicated getting that mid-range jumper, getting to the hole, getting and ones. And then the year before that, it's like somehow analytics got thrown this where three balls win championships. And they say, but everybody doesn't have what Golden State has. Golden State had Ferraris when it comes to shooting threes. Everybody else got like maybe Mercedes Benz or BMWs. And so that is the difference that people have to understand. Just because it worked for one team doesn't going to mean it's going to work for everybody else.
Yeah, just trying to figure this out. I mean, can you teach Luka to play defense?
If Luka plays in spurts, and it's so weird because sometimes you watch him like, okay, Luka, you're gonna move your feet, and then sometimes he just goes and sits, on the block and grabs a rebound and pushes it. I think if the team as a whole got on each other and say we need to play defense, and that's the great thing about all the teams I play for. We would yell at each other, we will argue with each other, but at the end of the day, we know it's for the best of the team because if you don't play defense, you don't win. I think the Lakers, after getting beat by the Phoenix Suns last night without their two best players, is a sign that you got to play defense.
But in fairness to Luka, he's asked to carry so much on the other end, right? His energy should be directed to the offensive side of the ball.
So I'm gonna ask you this question: Michael Jordan played on both ends of the floor, right? Kobe Bryant played on both ends of the floor, right? Elijah Wan played both ends of the floor. So why can't Luka do it too? And that's the thing that's about basketball. And the worst term that's ever used in basketball is a two-way player. That term should be thrown out. That's only for football. And because basketball is a sport played on both ends of the floor, you can rest at moments like a lot of players do, but you have to play both ends of the floor. And I think when you look at the game of basketball, that's how the best players should be judged. You look at Kawhi, and for instance, my MVP this year is Jaylen Brown/K, kind of because those guys do it on both ends of the floor, and so that's the thing you have to look at. Basketball is just not about offense; it's about defense too.
Yeah, I just don't think that Luka's athletic the way Kobe and Mike and Akeem were. I,
He is athletic. Here's the thing. There's a lot of guys that are like Luka, and Luka's very, very strong. So you have to use that to your advantage because you see sometimes when guys are trying to get to the hole on Luka, when he does move his feet, they bounce off him because he's so solid. He's just got to learn how to use that to his advantage. Every NBA player adapts to the game, so he can adapt defensively where he can learn. Don't get me wrong. Luka is a beast though. He can get his, but I think well, a lot of teams now are isolating those and doing a lot of one-on-one to try to manipulate the defense to get draws and kicks. But sometimes you just got to say, you know what? Take it on your own and guard him.
he does complain a lot, Robert.
Hey, what player in the NBA
Okay,
doesn't complain a lot?
Okay, did Mike complain a lot? Did Jordan complain a lot?
Uh, you know what? I can't really say because I didn't play with him. So when you play with someone, you watch someone 82 games, you can tell they complain a lot. And I think the only guy that complains a lot and is justly so is LeBron James because he gets beat up going to the hole sometimes, and he doesn't get the calls like a Shea does, like a Luka, like a AR, and so I think he's the only one that should be allowed to complain in the league.
So you think it's legitimate that, well, just like Shaq, I mean,
Yeah.
Shaq got beat up every single time it felt like down the floor.
Yeah, I remember playing next to Shaq, and all you hear is him
Smack,
getting
smack,
hit,
smack,
and
smack.
and the refs like, oh, he's strong enough to handle that. It shouldn't bother him, and that's not fair because Shea is strong enough, Luke is strong enough, Steph is strong enough because this is a man's league. It's not a kids' league. It's a man league, so everybody should be strong enough to withstand those hits. But they give them to certain players, and they don't give it to other players.
You grew up in Alabama. Was there pressure for you to play football?
My mother said no from Jump Street. She said you're allowed to play two sports and football is not one of them. So I played baseball and basketball, and and don't get me wrong, I love football. I wish I could have played, but it's one of those things that you kind of mama knows best.
Are you an Alabama Crimson Tide fan?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Alabama went to Alabama from '88 to '92. Had 4 great years under Wimp Sanderson. Won 3 SEC championships. Alabama's in my blood. My wife always talks about why you always like Alabama. That I said because it's in my blood, just the same way you like USC.
Oh, okay. That'd have to be interesting conversations. Let me
Yeah,
get the plug in here. Robert Horry is
yes.
the Chief Impact Officer for SureCo. It's SURECO. And the mission is to transform healthcare for working Americans. Tell us what else you're doing with this.
Well, Sureco is a company because I don't want to bore you with my story. The story started when you leave the NBA. It's all about what kind of insurance plan you had, and then my daughter who passed away, but it was hard to get insurance for her because of the Obamacare. We was finally able to get insurance for her, and they kind of heard my story on how I was frustrated with the insurance and how it wasn't working for me, and then how I have all this money in HRA and I can't touch, and it was just a whole thing. And it was like, you know what? The two guys I met, Matt and Matt, they go Matt, Chris, and so we were talking. And he said, "Man, you should join us because our mission is to try to change healthcare as a whole and to try to do different things for not just businesses, but people in rural areas." And that what excited me about it because I wanted to go to the rural areas because that's where I'm from to let them understand that insurance is here for you. I know it's difficult and it's hard to understand. Like I'm still learning, and I had to deal with a lot when it came to my daughter Ashton and understanding how to get her the proper care. So it's just one of those things we don't want people to be afraid of it. Take 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day and start reading up on it so you can learn about, ICRA and all these other things. So that's what my, Shikra and I are trying to do. Basically, in a whole, we're trying to customize insurance for you to make it work better for you.
How old was your daughter when she passed away?
She was 17.
And you never get over that.
Yeah, you never do. You have those days when you wake up and you see one little thing that reminds you of you just started crying and all this kind of stuff, or you start smiling because when you lose a loved one, you shouldn't always cry. You miss them, of course, but you got to remember all those moments that gave you so much joy. And I remember sitting down and the last picture I had with her, I was eating a slice of pizza and she kept trying to not let me eat and just wanted to hug me. So you have moments like that are special and that'll stay with you the rest of your life.
Hopefully, you got a special moment coming up here, getting in the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. But I'll keep sounding the alarm, Robert. I'll keep
Uh,
sounding the alarm.
Man, I want to say this, man. That means a lot to me because I have a lot of people in my corner for the Hall of Fame, and I just want people to understand that they look at numbers a lot, how many points you scored, how many rebounds you got. But I just want to let everybody know the Hall of Fame is not about what you did in the NBA. The Hall of Fame is about what you did in your basketball career. Because if it was about the NBA, it'd be an NBA Hall of Fame. This is a basketball Hall of Fame. So, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, man.
Robert Horry, Lakers analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet, and the company is Sureco, Sureco, and the mission to transfer health care for working Americans.